This is Dr. Sivaraman of iknowindices.com. Hope you are able to hear me. Good day, Sandra. Thanks for confirming the sound. Let me display the PowerPoint presentation. Asian session live market analysis on December 13th between 5 and 5:30 GMT. So we'll be, as usual, tracking the market using the live market code page. Let me give the link for the same, and I'll also focus the camera over that of the live market code page, and then we will review the market. Currently, euro is trading around 1.3184, 1.3186. The low is 1.3183. The high is 1.3229, and 38 pips negative net change is seen. So, as explained on Friday, they just made a flat opening with a nominal dip in the case of euro, and also in the case of GBP below that of the psychological level 1.58. So currently GBP is trading around 1.5779, 1.5783. The low is 1.5780, the high is 1.5810, and 21 pips negative net change is seen. So we come across a narrow range swings are happening in the case of euro and GBP, and yen is trading around 84.10, 84.13, and the low was 83.78, the high was 84.14. 18 pips positive net change is seen. So when you compare all the three currencies, you come across that USD gaining moves are shown by euro and GBP as well as USD yen. In the case of CHF, 0.9839, 0.9842 are the current levels. 9814 is the low, 9852 is the high. 28 pips positive net change is seen when euro has made about 38 pips negative net change. CHF has gained only about 28 pips positive net change, so they wanted to slowly gain the levels in the case of CHF when compared with the drop we are seeing in the case of euro. And in the case of GBP also 21 pips negative net change is seen, so that is lesser when compared to that of euro. So as a result, you find euro GBP is trading around 83.53, 83.56, 83.50 is the low, 83.68 is the high. 14 pips negative net change is seen. So they made a nominal gain, and they intend to make further slide, and probably today we could see euro GBP going to the lower range of 83 or slightly or briefly touch upon 82 area. And in the case of CHF, the lesser rise is seen. Because of that, it has revisited below that of 1.30. Currently, euro CHF is trading around 1.2975, 1.2978, 1.2950 is the low, 1.28988 is the high. You find flat level. So you have to consider up to the fourth decimal, not the fifth decimal. So you find that it is almost around that of the Friday close level, and they made a brief downward stop, and they intend to gain the levels in the case of euro CHF and drop in the case of euro GBP. And similarly, in the case of GBP CHF, it is not listed here, but since GBP has made a lesser drop when compared to that of rise of euro CHF, USD CHF, you could find that GBP CHF will be making a positive net change. So you can refer to that in our platform or somewhere. Then with regard to the commodity pairs, Canadian dollar, USD CAD 1.0100, 1.0104 are the current levels, 1.0095, just 5 pips below that of the psychological level 1.01, and 5 pips above 1.0105 is a high, and you find 8 pips positive net change is seen. And in the case of Australian dollar, 11 pips negative net change is seen. They are also showing USD gaining move to start with. So what could be the expected move? Okay, let me also analyze with regard to the yen crosses. You find euro yen is trading around 110.91, 110.96, 110.67 is the low, 111.03 is the high. 7 pips negative net change is seen because you find that euro has made about 35 pips negative net change, and USD yen has made only 17 pips positive net change. As a result, you find a small dip, and euro yen is trading in the middle level between the high and the low. And GBP yen has gained about 9 pips from that of Friday close. It came down to 130 level, now currently trading around 132.72, 132.79, 132.37 is the low, 132.78 is the high. You find a narrow range swing is happening here. They are expected to make a brief downward stop and then subsequently gain the levels in the case of GBP, probably either by dipping GBP or by dipping USD-Yen. So they made an upward stop in the case of USD-Yen. So we have to see on Friday also they cut the high and stayed above that of the high. I was explaining to you that was a good trade, 83.78 level you could have taken a buy, and that has become the low, and then you come across that they are slowly gaining the level for the new week. So in the case of the denominator currencies, they are expected to make the one-sided gains slowly, and you come across that we are in the third week of this particular month. So we are having about 5 months, but the first month was partially, only 3 days were in the previous, along with that of the previous month. So now you come across 13th to 17th is 1 week, and afterwards 20 to 24 another week, 27 to 31 final week for the year. So we have another 17 days to go through, and many people might be thinking that it is because of the holiday the market is making nominal moves, but when you compare to last year, you can understand that last year also, the last month they made a massive move, and initially they are expected to make this sort of moves and create the feel that market might be lackluster. Then gradually they are expected to become aggressive because they wanted to earn in this quarter as much as possible to complete the year with more profitability. So let me go back to that of the PowerPoint presentation. So I will display the slide with regard to the forecast. So Japanese session, a dip and then a rise is expected. So towards close of Japanese session, we are expecting a rise as per the algorithm. So currently you find that Euro is trading around that of the low, GBP is also trading near that of the high, and they are expected to gain the levels in the denominator currencies to start with, that is USDN, USD CHF and USD CAD. Then followed by that, they could gain the levels in the case of Euro, GBP as well as Australian dollar. So a small dip you could come across during the European session because they are expected to swing and slide during that of the late European session. During that slide time, and you could see that it is a weak beginning false moon. Subsequently, during US session, they are expected to gain very quickly. So probably during that dip time, one can initially breach the high during that the Japanese session, and then probably you could come across some more drop below that of the low during late European session. In case if they breach the high and then gain some levels during that of the early European session, then the slide could be up to that of the low or a brief downward stop and as a weak beginning stop move during the late European session, and then the rise is expected during that of the US session. So if you would have noticed carefully that they are not doing the weak beginning false move during the Japanese session. Last week they have been doing it during that of the US session, and this week most of the time they are expected to make the weak beginning false move, or not this week, the later weeks you could come across weak beginning false move happening during the late European session before the start of the US session. So gradually you will find that when the volume picks up, the players are expected to make a quick downward stop and then subsequently gain the levels. So these are all the expected moves. Probably those who have joined late can probably look into that again. A dip and a rise is expected during Japanese session, and then European session is expected to make a swing near that of the low or near that of the middle level. Then in that case they could breach the high during the early European session and make a brief upward stop and then slide. Then probably it will be a range bound swing from high to that of low. And in case if they don't breach the high, then you could come across during the late European session, they breach the low again and make little more drop. It depends upon the stops where they find a cluster of stops and then try to earn from that of this, hitting the stops and then gain the levels towards close of the European session and also swing and rise during the US session. With regard to the initial lows and the highs, so that we will be able to understand the market. 1.3183 is the low in the case of euro, which are set between 2:30 and 3:30 GMT. Still, it is being respected, and you don't find a breach below that, and the high is not reached yet. Still, you come across about 34 pips negative net change in the case of euro. So they are not made a downward stop, and in the case of GBP, they made a downward stop. 1.5786 was the low, and they breached and formed 1.5780 as the low. So that shows that they could make a brief downward stop in the case of GBP, and they have come above that of that. Still, they are not come above that of 1. They come up closer to that, and if they just gain in another 10 minutes above 1.5786 and stay there, then that was a brief downward stop and for about 6 pips, and then subsequently they could downward. Either they do it during the Japanese session one currency and European session another currency, like euro during the Japanese session and GBP during European session, or GBP during the Japanese session and euro during that of the European session. That sort of downward stop, and they are carefully doing it. So that means what? They wanted to maintain the uncertainty whether euro and GBP are expected to drop, and they are staying around that of the high 84.07, 84.10 of the current levels. So if they sustain the bid becomes 84.09 for about 30 minutes, then you could come across that they gain further levels in the case of USD-Yen. So any dip below that, probably you should see how they are handling 84.78, and most of the days, excepting on Friday last week, they did not make a downward stop. Initially, they make a initial low, then subsequently they are not breached. Only on Friday, they made a brief downward stop below that of the low, and then subsequently gained the levels. So that was around 84.35, and then subsequently they gained the levels in the case of USD-Yen. Australian dollar, 98.34 is the low, which is still respected, not breached. Market is around that of psychological level 1.01 area, 1.0105 is the high. That is also not breached. You can understand that they are simply holding the market around that of 1.01 area, making a small dip, making a small gain and things like that. So probably they are waiting for the volume to gradually pick up, and then subsequently they could make further moves. So these are all the lows and the highs. I have also given these levels in the blog for reference. So throughout the day, you can refer to this first blog, and subsequently I'll give the update with regard to the forecast also. Then see how exactly today the market is initiating the moves, and whether we are going to see the USD gaining or USD weakening move. And USD gaining move is expected to be short-lived today, and later on you could come across USD weakening move during the day. And in this month, I'm expecting still euro and GBP are expected to gain more levels, and probably that could give a surprise when people think that the volume is very less. And also for the New Year, they are expected to make, it's normally a situation where in New Year, they try to make some aggressive moves in the market using some rumor or just data release and things like that. And in the month of January, they are expected to gain till March in the case of euro and GBP. Later on, we could come across a big drop in euro and GBP as a USD gaining move. So let me minimize the PowerPoint presentation and take up the questions which are asked here. And meanwhile, focus the camera over the live market page. Then Arun. Okay. Still, some people are noisy in the blog trying to comparison with you. They are just behaving like new traders. We have won some trades, and when lose money, they come to blog and start. So that we will not be able to help it. We are trying our level best to control it and use it as a they can just get an emotional phase. What else we can do? And I can request the readers simply ignore such comments, because I do not want that comments to act as a distraction for the others who are reading it, and try to take it as a reference material for the trading decisions. In balance, do you expect a rise before FOMC and then continue to extend stop and before the rise. See, they could use FOMC, but it's mostly I'm expecting the gain starting from that of the US session today and with the rest of the days in the week. Tomorrow 14th, I'm expecting gradual gains, not extending the false move till midweek like last week. They could straight away gain the levels tomorrow from Japanese session, and also on Wednesday we could come across the gains, and on Thursday there could be a slide in order to, especially during the European session, and that could trigger some people to just to turn short. On Friday they are expected to gain back the levels. So most of the days I'm expecting the USD weakening move in this particular week. So let us just review it day by day and see how exactly the market is behaving. And then from there we will develop the trading ideas rather than simply believing on the forecast, and we will also use the market reading and use the trading strategies to effectively earn from that of the market. You knew it. According to your algorithm, when will Euro and GBP start sliding? I explained it that I'm expecting it from the second week of March, the strong USD gaining move. But now it may, you would have noticed that it came down to, Euro came down to 1.29 area briefly and went up, and so afterwards it is not revisiting. So similarly, GBP also gained from 1.5484, 1.55 area to 1.58 area. So still you come across the Euro and GBP gaining moves. Last week we have seen, and this week also further gains could be seen. Then I missed DTPT. What you said about USD CHF? What is your view? USD CHF has not breached the low, and it is expected to slowly gain the levels because Euro is showing currently about 31 pips negative net change, whereas USD CHF is showing 24 pips negative positive net change. So that means it is lesser than that of Euro. So slowly they wanted to gain the levels in the case of USD CHF, and mainly because they wanted to hold Euro CHF. That's a Euro CHF below 1.30, and still it is positive net change, but below that they wanted to keep, and currently you find that 29.75, 29.78 are the levels, 29.50 was the low, they are not reached. So below 1.30 they want to hold because many of the traders are looking for technical trades at Euro CHF. Once it breaches 1.30 and stay below that, they wanted to take sell positions, so they are inducing them to do that, and then subsequently they are expected to gain the levels in the case of Euro CHF. And you know that technically it might appear that we will be able to grab about 30-40 pips. That might happen, but we may not be able to physically do the trade at that time. Before you try to place an order, they could reverse and show loss in the short sell level. In DTPT, do you see it going to 0.99, or do you see that is the same USD CHF? USD CHF is expected to go above that of parity probably in this week or next week, early next week. Then ATMI. Do you expect changes in euro currency or the forex market next year, or only nominal US dollar gaining? Changes, I think, is referring with regard to the levels, not with regard to the market structure. Only normal USD gaining moves, because you mentioned that big drop in the month of next year March. After the gains, it could drop. It all depends upon the gain. So if it is able to gain about 1000 to 2000 pips, then probably it will just ease on about 1000 pips. But if it has gained only about 300-500 pips, you will come across sideways moves in the market. So it all depends upon the volume determines such moves in the market. Normal expectation is they will try to fulfill the monthly potency of 1100 to 1300 pips in the case of Euro, and about 1600 pips to 1800 pips in the case of GBP. And if the volume is optimal, then they will try to do it. And the volume of the traders is important, not the volume of the operators. or the players, because the players have to continuously make their circular trades, that is sell from one terminal and buy it from another terminal, obviously the bank terminal, but still they don't make any money out of that because they have to keep the market floating. That is very important. So for that there could be a volume, and that volume we cannot take into consideration. Traders' participation is important. If the traders' volume increases substantially, then you could come across big gains and big drops happening in the market. Now GBP has come closer to the low, whereas Euro is holding it. 57.80 is the bid, and that is the low. Let us see how exactly they are handling that. And also USD CHF has gone to that of 84.09, that was the initial high. They are holding it. Then delete. It's likely that they may make extended stop and in Euro this month before they change. I don't find much of a scope for extended stop and the current scenario, the way in which they are making the moves, they are making the extended stop and to a level of about 30 to 50 pips, sometimes 60 pips quickly. Not about the full-fledged 150 pips downward move and quick rise. Low volume could be one of the considerations for that. Then pip bull, there are small spreads in regards to the initial highs and the lows. Can we comment on this any further? Yeah, obviously when the spread is less, I explained the other day in Tracking the Forex Market Together webinar that only if you come across about 40 to 60 pips net change or the spread between the low and the high will give a good trading opportunity in a specific currency. If it has not been achieved, then wait for that to be achieved, then initiate the trade. Whenever they make a quick drop and stop cutting the low, then try to, for 30 minutes, then try to take a buy. Whenever they make a quick rise and stop cutting the high for more than 30 minutes, then you try to take a sell. That sort of trade you can do it only when the spread becomes good. Say for example, in the case of USD yen, even though it has cut the high and here about 22, 36 pips has been achieved. When compared to normal days, 36 is a big number with regard to USD yen. So if it gradually improves, then you can try to take a buy and sell trade in the case of USD yen. And in the case of a Swiss franc, for example, so you come across about 37 pips. So this is not still good to take position. So let them make a quick downward stop and an upward stop, and if they stay above the high, probably you can try to take a buy and sell trade also at the time as a technical trade. Similarly, in the case of Australian dollar, even there again it is about 15 to 20 pips. So it is a very, very nominal spread. So it is not advisable to initiate any position at the current level. So watch for such good momentum happening in the market, then you come in. Then Oscar, when do you see the high levels in USD CAD? Yeah, as I explained earlier also, the denominator currencies are expected to gain the levels. So you find that USD CHF is gaining, it is not dropping much, whereas Canadian dollar is holding it, and they wanted to handle CHF CAD cross. For that, they will try to bring both of them together. So for that, you could come across Canadian dollar ranging between 1.02 to 1.01 area. Meanwhile, USD CAD CHF is expected to gain above parity. Then you will find both of them trading around that parity level. Then afterwards, you will find Canadian dollar gaining more. Then Devangan, you said Euro had a flat opening, whereas today there was a negative gap opening for about 25 to 30 pips. Yeah, but most of the currencies, the expectation was flat opening. So one or two currencies probably they just do it like that, but still around Friday close level they set it as a high, and from there they made a dip. So 5 hours already passed. Okay, afterwards they made the low, and what they have said the low still they are not breached. So they are the expectations, but they can show some exceptions in some currencies. Yeah, I'm not God to say that no, they should not drop and things like that. These are all the derivations from the algorithm, and it can go wrong at any time. Please understand that. So don't take it as a gospel truth or predictions, etc. No, sir, I misunderstood. Are you saying USD CHF will go to parity before USD CAD rises any further? Yeah, they will be oscillating around this, and slowly USD CHF is expected to go to parity, and then afterwards they could trade both the currencies around the same level so that they will be able to handle CHF CAD cross. Then subsequently Canadian dollar USD CAD is expected to gain further up. Till such time we'll find they are in the range bound swings. Okay. There are no more questions, so I'll just go back to that as a PowerPoint presentation. And one more question. Next year, March, which area GBP and Euro are expected to visit? So let us just see how exactly in the first 3 months they are going to gain the level. So let us not derive the level straight away, sir. Because I have seen last year when I just given the levels with regard to the market swing, most of the people were spending all their energy in just commenting about the forecast rather than focusing on their trades. So invariably, when the levels are given, they immediately keep that as the target and they just hold the positions when it is making loss. And the downside move started in a big way, then they started commenting, but without handling the position properly. Because I do not want to just create a situation so that the traders go in for imaginations. Then DTPT. Do you see Euro visit 1.31 area today during the drop? No. Probably they are trading around that 1.3191, 1.3183, and the earlier low was 1.3166. So probably just they may do a brief downward stop of about 10 to 12 bits, and then they are expected to go up. Or sometimes they may not do even a downward stop. But downside move, according to my algorithm, is limited today and also in this week. So let me focus the camera over the PowerPoint presentation. So, expected market move, a dip has already happened and they are expected to rise towards closer challenge. This is based on the algorithm. Okay. Then European session swing and slide moves are expected. Depending upon the gain, the drop will be. If the gain is less, the drop will also be less. If the gain is more, then the drop will be from there to that of the low. And if they don't gain and breach the high, then probably they could make one more downward stop during the late European session and then gain the levels during US session. Swing and rise moves are expected, and a weak beginning false move is expected to happen during that of the late European session. Okay, that means that move will be able to indicate whether they want to rise Euro and GBP or drop Euro and GBP. So these are all the initial lows and the highs. The low in the case of Euro is not breached, but only in the case of GBP they have breached it, and they formed 5780. So that means about 6 drop they have made it, and subsequently they are not breached it as a follow-up drop. And in the case of CHF, both are intact, the low and the high, and in the case of yen, they breached the high. So only in GBP and yen they have made some moves. So probably to handle Euro GBP cross, and in the case of Australian dollar, they are not breached the low or the high again. In the case of Canadian dollar, it's a very narrow range. They are still holding. Normally, Canadian dollar used to pick up some swings, but it's not happening there again. So these are all the levels for us to keep it as a reference level for today and try to track the market using these initial lows and the highs set between 2:30 and 3:30 GMT. And also I displayed in the blog. We'll use it as a reference level and try to see how exactly they intend to make the moves in the market. So I take this opportunity to thank everybody who have come here and also FX Trade. And tomorrow again I'll come and present the Asian session live market analysis same time. Thank you one and all. Bye.